Hello and welcome to our room here on Clubhouse, our club, MIT Technology Reviews Club. We are back again for another great emerging tech conversation with thought leaders. And this time we're going to be focused on mobile innovation and staying a step ahead of consumer demand in that area. So we are here today with our host, a woman who's joined me here on this platform frequently, the Thelma to my Louise here on Clubhouse, MIT Technology Reviews CEO and publisher. Needs no introduction, certainly not for me. Elizabeth Bramson Boudreau. Hi,
Hi,
Elizabeth.
everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
And our guest of honor today, so excited to introduce to you right now, Raj Talluri. He is Senior VP and General Manager of the Mobile Business Unit at Micron. Just a little bit more on Raj, and I'm going to make sure that I post a link to his LinkedIn here in the room so you can dive a little bit more into his background, because he truly is a thought leader in this area. So it behooves you to click on this link, everyone. He is a veteran in the semiconductor industry. He joined Micron after 9 years at Qualcomm, where he was responsible for their Internet of Things business. And before that, Raj held executive positions at Texas Instruments. And if I may say so myself, my TI-83 graphing calculator circa 1996 was an important part of my youth. So I need to acknowledge that moment whenever I think of Texas Instruments. But welcome to Elizabeth. Welcome to Raj. Welcome to all who are listening us in our club today. And I'm really personally looking forward to, if you couldn't tell, to today's conversation. So Elizabeth, with that, what are we going to be talking about today? A little bit more detail.
Yeah, so thank you for that introduction, Caitlin. Raj, it's wonderful to have you here with us. So we're talking about what's fueling mobile innovation and what's coming. Raj is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Mobile Business at Micron. Raj, you've had like 25 years in the mobile industry. You've worked with a lot of pretty celebrated companies in the space. I'm imagining you have seen some things. So is it safe it is safe. We all know that mobile phones are ubiquitous. We're all holding one in one hand. We might have one in our hip pockets as well. We're depending on them more and more. How has the smartphone evolved over time? And can we look at the history of that evolution to help us see forward and what's to come with any, real insights and clarity about what's around the corner? What is the way you think about the historical context of the future?
Firstly, I mean, Caitlin and Elizabeth, it's really my great pleasure and an honor to be on this platform. It's fantastic to talk about something that I'm very passionate about personally, which is mobile phones, the technology in mobile phones, and what kind of the future holds for mobile phones. And I mean, as you mentioned, I've been fortunate to be in this space for a long time. And maybe just a little bit of background: I did my PhD here in UT Austin, in image processing and computer vision areas. I started at Texas Instruments working on digital cameras. I love photography. I always loved cameras, and you can see I post a few pictures on LinkedIn every so often. But really, I was fascinated by the concept of taking pictures with your mobile phone, because at some point someone once asked me what's the best camera, and the answer was always the camera you have on you all the time. And there's nothing that you have on you all the time than your mobile phone. It's become kind of indispensable part of everyone's life. And I had the good fortune to start working on one of the very early mobile phone cameras, which were in the Nokia phones. And from then to now, you look at the latest, the Samsung Galaxy phones and iPhones and so on. You can see how much advances have been made in mobile, and particularly, like in not just in the camera space, but if you think of, I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine, all the things we do with our phone nowadays, right? I mean, there's just conversation. I mean, most of us are calling in through our phones, and never imagine that it's our web browser, it's our entertainment device, it's our car, because you hail Uber through it, and it's the one you order your food through Uber Eats or do your shopping on. It's your banking device, and it's your AR VR companion, and it's your social media. So it's really become an indispensable part of our life, and it's been fascinating to watch that transition over the last many years. And big part of that has been because of all the technology we've been able to pack into that.
Yeah.
And that's really the key is, not just processors, but processors, memory, storage, cameras, displays. A lot of things changed over time for us to be able to make the phone what it is today. And honestly, it's kind of a disservice to call it a phone. It really is your companion. It's your device that you can't live without.
Yeah, so we're continuing to see lots of these features that we thought of as computer features or PC features on our smartphones, and we are getting lots of things in return for that. We're getting quicker refresh rates, better graphics. So thinking about what comes after around 5G and it- applications involving AI, VR, smart assistants, what are people able to do today that we couldn't that was impossible before? And can you give us some practical examples about, what we've achieved in the milestones we've passed?
Couple of things, right? I mean, firstly, if you look at mobile phone evolution over the past many years, one of the key things that has really made this device so phenomenal, uh, compared to all the other devices we use. Like, I mean, at some point, people used to buy as many mobile phones as, I don't know, digital cameras or MP3 players or TVs or whatever. But the phone very quickly became, the smartphone, and then it became the largest technology platform you can find. I mean, there is 1.3 billion, or more smartphones sold every year. I mean, that's a staggering number. And people keep replacing their phones every couple of years. And the reason for that has been the fact that it's a connected device. I think that is a really fundamental aspect of the phone. Because people talk about 2G, 2.5G, 3G, 4G, and now we're on the stage of 5G. And that fact that it's always connected has really made this device stand apart from a lot of other devices, and a platform where technology integration happens, right? I mean, we had our own, like if you think about it, people used to buy digital cameras, people used to buy MP3 players, people used to buy, Garmin GPS. You guys might remember that. Nobody buys, very few people buy those anymore. I mean, all those things have gotten integrated into the phone. And the reason is it's with you all the time and it's connected. And that makes a
Yeah.
huge difference, particularly now with 5G. I've been watching, I've been in this space since 2G and 3G and 4G and now 5G. And, one of the questions that gets asked every time is, hey, what's the killer app for this new connectivity technology? Like,
Mm.
what's 5G going to do that 4G didn't do, or so on.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, you know, it's one of those things where it's a technology platform, and the best applications that come with the new connectivity have not really been invented. And what do I mean by that? Like, I was involved in a lot of discussions, I think when I was at TI, on, hey, should we really put GPS in the phone? Because GPS was a technology that became available, and people were like, hey, we should put it into the mobile phone because people may have some use for it.
Yep.
And no one actually thought that putting GPS will launch applications like Uber. The
Right.
fact that you have location in a phone is what made Uber and Lyft possible, and that had a huge impact on total number of car sales or how you think about where you go. Um, you know, I think that is kind of how these platforms are. Like with 5G, I think it's going to have a tremendous impact on many aspects of people's lives, because 5G does a few things that 4G couldn't really deliver. One is just the tremendous amount of bandwidth.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example just to motivate this so much easier. So I mean, we used to worry about, hey, can we really? I mean, let's say you want to get on a plane and you're like, I want to watch some show, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I got to start downloading stuff in the night before or something because it's
Yeah.
going to take a long time to download this. Particularly nowadays, people just launch an entire series of episodes, like Netflix or whatever, that you can download, which was unthinkable a few years ago. But now with 5G, you can download all of that at 4K in just a fraction of a time compared to what it was before. And that is
Sure.
so liberating because now all the content now is on your phone when you travel. And the other, interesting thing is there is this thing that's also 5G does, which is latency. There's two aspects to connectivity technology. One is just how much content you can bring in and how fast you can bring it in. The other one is how quickly does a phone does a device respond. For example, let's say AR VR is going to have a huge impact 5G is going to have a huge impact on AR VR. And why is that? Because when you buy an AR VR headset, or when you take your phone and put it into a AR VR headset, one thing that happens is when you move your head, you need the scene to move just as fast as your head moves. Otherwise, you get nauseous. There is something called motion to photon latency, which basically means from the time your head moves, how quickly has the scene caught up with it. And one of the reasons, now let's say you're playing an online game, it means that the fact that your head position moved had to be sent up the link and come back down really fast. So the low latency is so key in addition to high bandwidth. And those
Right.
are some of the things that 5G is going to provide. So that's why a lot of people are excited by 5G, not
Right.
only for the bandwidth, but also for the latency, right?
Hmm.
I think that's so you'll see our phones do things that are so much more different with 5G than they were with 4G. And the other big news is that to do these things, you just need tremendous amount of memory and storage. Because if you're going to download an entire series of 10 or 15 episodes or multiple seasons, you got to have storage on your phone to store those, because now those are coming down in 4K and 8K. And that's where I think at Micron we are super excited, because that's kind of what we do. We provide that high performance memory and high performance storage to actually store all these videos, and to store and to have that low latency, and to have that immediacy of AR VR experience on the phone, which is kind of where why we spend so much time understanding these applications.
So looking at emerging technologies that are coming out, how do you stay on top of the new emerging technologies that are going to impact the industry and growing consumer demand? I know that consumers were coming to expect a lot from our phones. We want a longer battery life. We want better performance. We want to be able to store all our photographs in 8K video. I know, Raj, you're a very skillful photographer. So how do you stay abreast of those new technologies, and what helps you kind of understand what needs to be built in order to support the consumer, the dynamism of consumer demand?
Yeah, I mean that's actually a terrific question, because that is one of the key questions. And maybe just for your audiences, I'll kind of maybe give you a feel for how people like Micron, people like Qualcomm, people like MediaTek, all these people who make processors and other chips into phones kind of think about it. Because the timelines are so different, in the sense that when we think of making a processor, or when we think of making some memory device or a storage device that goes into the phone, typically it takes us like 6 months to define the specification. Maybe it takes us another year to design it, and by the time we get samples through our fabs and give it to our customers, it probably takes us another 4 to 5 months. And then they start the design of the phone, and by the time they launch it, it probably takes another year with all the software and all that. So at any given point in time, we're working on things that will come out into the market minimum 3 years from now. So think about the job of predicting what your phone will be 3 years from now. It's hard enough to predict what it'll do in the next 6 months, right? But the other challenging part is not only just your phone. Once the phone comes out, there are a whole bunch of people who are very smart, very innovative, launch applications on that phone platform that keep coming on a year and a half after that. So typically the innovation cycle of the products we make as a chipset suppliers is 4 to 5 years out when they come to products. So we really have to think about how will people use these phones 4 years from now, and what kind of applications will happen there, and design our products and design the chipsets to be kind of future proof for those kind of
Right.
use cases, right? So that's the hard part of this job. But if we think about it, is we think in a few years from now, you can probably visualize that your back of the phone could be full of cameras, not just three or four. I think the reason that we have three or four cameras in the back is because we managed to solve the zoom problem in the phones in a different way. Zoom lenses always stuck out of the cameras and they're too big. But the way we've solved this in mobile phones is to have multiple lenses with different focal lengths and seamlessly switch through them. So the lens never have to protrude out of the phone like how it does in a camera. That's a very
Right.
clever way to solve that, right? And I think that is kind
Absolutely.
of things that will kind of try to happen. I feel is that for example, we are seeing the very early stages of what we call contextual awareness. What that means is right now, most of you might feel the phone will come up and say, "Hey, you need to leave now. You'll be late for your meeting," or you need to do this, or so the phone is trying to predict what you might want to do or where you need to be, but it's very rudimentary in my view. I think as AI and machine learning, really happens, and we get more and more memory and more storage and more higher and higher performance processing with that high speed connection to the cloud, I think your smartphone will be able to anticipate much, much better what each person would want to do next, or what they should do, or in fact, do some of those things for them. I think contextual awareness is something that will really take off in the next few years. I think we really believe that that's still in the early stages. And the other one I'll kind of go out and say is that I think we've kind of used this kind of rectangular devices with a screen as our phones as the form factor. I think that is going to change. I mean, you can already see the beginnings of it with people like Samsung and a bunch of other people launching foldable phones, where now suddenly you're able to, the form factor is evolving to the point where it becomes much smaller, but when you want it, gets much bigger. We can see that changing quite a bit. We can see this phone functionality. When I say phone functionality, all these things that your smartphones do, us taking that for granted and being able to deliver those in different form factors. Maybe your headset is going to become a lot more capable, or your AR, VR glasses, or the glasses you wear will be your smartphone. So I think the form factor itself is going to change quite a bit in ways that we can't really predict now, because there's a lot of technology and a lot of work being done in different aspects of that. And the last one I'll say is, I think people will have much more than one device that performs this functionality. Already, people have things like smartwatches and phones, and sometimes they only go with the watch. Sometimes they go with the phone and the watch. It could be more devices like that, that this functionality that smartphone provides can get more and more distributed. And for us, we have to comprehend what that means to the different kinds of chips we make, different cost points, different power envelopes, different sizes that go into those.
Elizabeth and Raj, we've covered off on where we've been, where we're going. And Raj, I will post a link in a minute when you get into this next question with Elizabeth about contextual awareness, because we do have some more resources on that I want to share with the room. But the user experiences, even my own personal experience with my devices and smartphones, it's rapidly evolving.
Right.
So perhaps we can continue this 5G proliferation conversation, try saying that phrase 3 times fast, with some additional consumer context. And I think Elizabeth might have the prime example of her in her own household of how
Right.
this is coming to life.
Yeah, so I've got, Caitlin knows I have 2 teenage daughters, and like most kids their age, they are constantly on platforms like TikTok, especially TikTok, but not only. And of course, there is this reality that we are having this very conversation on Clubhouse, which is mobile based. So just thinking about I guess it's Generation Z, the younger folks who, like my teenage daughters, what does 5G adoption mean at the consumer side for them? What do you see?
A few things that have happened recently that are actually pretty amazing, as 5G started. I mean, there's two big things that have happened quietly almost in the mobile phones, in the smartphones. One is, of course, the adoption of 5G and higher bandwidth. And the other one is the proliferation of AI and machine learning, which we actually don't really, most users don't see it and don't know that it's even AI and machine learning. And I'll give you an example. I mean, for a long time, our ability, the social media was kind of full of, let's take pictures and share them, Instagram, Snapchat, and so on. Right? That become really big. Quietly, TikTok has become a huge platform in the amount of that. And now, if you go to Instagram, Reels has become really, really big in terms of how people share content. Now, what has happened to actually make that happen? Right? Actually, if you think about it, to be able to record video and share video is a huge technological advancement, because to store one picture versus 30 frames per second, 30 images per second for like, I don't know, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds videos is a tremendous amount of data. And that has been made possible by very high performance memories that we made, like LPDDR5 and so on, and a lot of storage. And that kind of created people from, hey, why just take a picture? Let me take a video. Now, the problem with video has always been that our users, kind of acceptance of video is based on, really highly produced content like movies and TV shows. So to
Sure.
make good video, it's tough. You got to edit it, you got to upload it, you got to put it on a PC and so on. But what AI and machine learning was able to do is that they were able to really create this fantastic video editing software right inside your TikTok and these applications. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that 5G also provides high speed uplink, which means you can upload data at much higher speeds than you were able to do before. So that's kind of what has made the rise of these social platforms having a lot more video content is because of 5G and AI and the memory and storage being available. I think that's something that will continue for a while. I think video quality will get better, higher resolution, and so on. But I think the other use case in 5G that's really going to happen is not just video uploading, but video receiving, right? And it's a use case that we actually think about quite a bit on what will happen with 5G. Like you go to a sports stadium and you watch some content. Many times, a lot of people go to stadiums and not just watch it at home because when you're in a stadium, you can look at the sport from any angle you want, right? Whereas if you're at home, you see what the cameraman delivers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what sometimes, for your audience who are into like, football or one of these sports, you actually see that every so often there's a great play on the field and you get this 360-degree view of that
Oh,
catch
it's
or something
amazing.
like that, right? And now you wonder, how is that happening? Now, the way that happens is there's a whole bunch of cameras in the stadium and people actually record the same scene with multiple different angles, put them all together, create this 360-degree view, and transmit that one thing as a video to you. And that's what you see. Now, when you're in the stadium, you can actually look around and see whatever you want to see. Now just imagine with 5G, you are able to broadcast all those video streams from all those camera angles simultaneously to your phone. And as a user, every user is able to pick from which point they want to see or which 360-degree view they want to see. That is the power of kind of true, that is the promise, I guess, of the true interactive TV that we've been trying to accomplish for a long time. But I think that is very much possible now with 5G, AI, machine learning, and the kind of processing and memory we're putting in the phones that every user can now use their phone or even a VR headset and feel like they're at the stadium themselves.
Okay, so what about when it comes to you've talked a lot about the internal memory capacity and the storage. We've talked about some use case scenarios and some more technical changes. So hardware, Raj, when it comes to smartphone form factors, cameras, internal components, other physical features, what is ahead? Paint the picture, please.
Yes, tell us the future. We really want to know. And if you know lotto numbers, please share those as well. Please do.
I think the big innovation in the hardware is going to be sensors. I think today a lot of people don't know this. There are probably, I mean, last time I checked, like 18 to 20 sensors inside a phone. I mean, there's a sensor that senses the temperature. There's a sensor that senses when you pick up the phone and put it close to your face that the screen turns off. I mean, there's a gyrometer. There's a kind of pedometer that measures how many steps you make. There's so many sensors inside a phone. There's touch sensor, there's displays, there's cameras, and there's microphones. I think more and more sensors will be integrated into the phone. I've seen some really great sensor technology. I mean, you can already see that happening in your watch in terms of measuring biometrics, blood pressure and things like heart rate and so on. I think that is something that's going to become a lot more in the phones. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think the form factor is really going to change. I think still, the phone being a large rectangular block kind of limits a little bit on what it can do because, some people prefer big phones, some people prefer small phones because it
Mm-hmm.
still has to fit somewhere. But when you get to foldable phones, when you can really fold the phone into something smaller, or you can even roll the phone into a little piece of paper and then you open it up and it comes out. I think those kind of things will really happen. In terms of hardware, there's a lot of work being done on lenses and cameras. I still shoot with my DSLR,
Do
and
you?
every time,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
I do, and every time I shoot with the DSLR, I also shoot with my phone, and I kind of try to see, okay, what is it my DSLR is able to capture, but my phone is not able to, and there's a lot of areas to improve. Like one of the reasons is low light. Like many times, still, one of the problems with the phone is that The sensor is not so big. It's small, right? You literally have a small hole. So the bigger the sensor, the more light it connects. And the DSLRs have a big sensor and a large lens. But I still think a lot can be done in terms of taking multiple pictures and creating that phenomenal picture that a DSLR can do with your phone. And we caught up a lot. In good lighting, it works well. But in not so good lighting, things that are moving fast, we're still not there. So I actually think there's a lot of innovation on the camera side that's yet to come. And the AR VR aspect of it. I mean, and right now, AR VR is in very, very early stages, because to have that terrific realism that you feel like you're there, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done. So I think all those areas will improve quite a bit, over time.
So just a question on sensors. Are there applications for all those sensors other than I can immediately think of health, health monitoring and whatnot. Are there other applications outside of health that I'm not thinking about, Raj?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think, altimeters, pressure, temp, there's a lot of other stuff that's in there that could change your user experience. I mean, you actually see now, if you think of GPS as a sensor and it tells you your location, you can already see how much it makes a difference of, in terms of navigation, for example. But even those are still not super accurate, right? I mean, we all, see suddenly the GPS loses track when it's middle of buildings and so on. And those shouldn't happen. Those shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And particularly the integration of smart cities. Like, let's say you're driving around a city. I go to San Francisco quite often, and you just want to figure out where to park. I mean, you should never have to look for a parking spot. Your phone should know where the parking spot that's open is, because most of these parking spots have a parking meter next to it, and the parking meter should know if the parking spot is empty or not. And you're connected, the parking meter is connected, so it should be straightforward for you to be directed right to your empty parking spot.
Right.
But still, that doesn't happen, right?
That's the dream, though.
but the technology exists, right? So that's why, to me, those things are just a question of getting the applications to be built and the infrastructure to be connected. And as you were introducing me, I mean, you talked about the fact that I was responsible for the Internet of Things business at Qualcomm. So I ran the Snapdragon application processors, which are actually when power most of our phones today, all the Android phones. And then I worked on the Internet of Things product line. I realized then, how much all these other devices in and around us, if they got to the capability of the smartphone and they were all connected, what a difference it would make. Like,
Wow.
let's say the parking meter had the capability of a smartphone, or your electric meter had that, or let's say the light, the kind of traffic light had that kind of intelligence and communicated with you. So when you get to these kind of devices, all these things that are connected to have that kind of intelligence, and your phone is kind of connects to all of them, then you can see how much better the use cases can be, right? Because still we're looking at them in isolation, not as a connected series of devices, and that is in front of us.
Yeah, well, Raj, thank you very much. Again, this was Raj Talluri, Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Mobile Business Unit at Micron. He walked us through the future of mobile memory and storage technologies, how it's going to impact our daily lives and those of our teenage children and beyond. It was great pride and honor to host you today at the MIT Technology Review Clubhouse. So thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Yeah, Caitlin and Elizabeth, thank you so much. I really enjoyed
thank you. I just want to conclude formally. Yes, a huge thank you to our partners at Micron today for sponsoring today's conversation. Raj, you're Clubhouse superstar. I look forward to seeing you on this platform much more. Join us anytime. And Elizabeth, as always, Thelma to my Louise. As I mentioned earlier in the conversation, we really hope that you checked out some of the links that we posted here, because I think they go a couple more clicks down into what Raj and Elizabeth were discussing during our chat. I think they're super helpful just to give some context and unpack and understand the developments that are happening over at Micron in the mobile innovation space. And I personally think it's hugely exciting. We do have some hot gossip. We have some forthcoming Micron content coming out soon that I cannot encourage you enough to keep an eye out for on technologyreview.com. That includes a forthcoming episode of our Business Lab podcast hosted by my dear friend and colleague, Laurel Ruma. So please stay tuned for that. And you could always, just so you know, as a reminder, you can click on the little greenhouse in our club to replay today's conversation with Raj and Elizabeth, and also see what's on deck. And tomorrow, we're going to be joined here on Clubhouse by our editor-in-chief, Matt Honan, and our editorial director of print, Allison Arieff. And we're going to be chatting about our current magazine issue, which is money. The money issue. Is it time to reconsider cash? Would you take a loan from a blockchain app? I'm also very curious about where that conversation is going to go. Raj, I'm extending an invitation to you personally to join in. And especially in this economy, you bet I'm going to listen into tomorrow's conversation. So please, please join us. Thank you so much to Micron again. Elizabeth, Raj, pleasure. Hope everyone enjoyed listening to this conversation. Check out the content, and thank you, and see you soon, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
again, everybody. Thank you, Raj.